Hi guys, so for today's recording, we are going to learn how to possibly ID trees for your book project for our dichotomous keys. And I will apologize, it's a little windy today, so there may be some air being blown through my microphone. So first of all, before we get started, we need to have certain supplies. And those supplies are, you need to have a book that you're not going to use anytime soon for you to put your leaves in. This is from after class. This recording is after we had our class. And this is where we're going to press our leaves in our book. You need glue. You may need some tissues or something if you're working with pine trees, and some water to help rinse your hands off, scissors, a knife for things that are going to be harder to cut than with a pair of scissors, some tweezers, paper, and also a pencil. So we will go on a journey around Philippi today so that we can ID some trees around the town. Oh, you also need some sticky notes as well for you to attach to your leaves as you collect them. Okay, so I just teleported, what looked like I teleported on your screen, but we are at our first tree. Whenever you identify trees, you look at several different aspects of the tree. You look at the leaves or needles. You look at the bark. You can use smell for these, especially with pine trees. You would take a needle and pinch it, then smell it. There are different scent profiles for pine trees especially, but also fruit trees, and some of your other trees will have a smell to them that help with the identification. So us tree people aren't crazy. We are just using our senses. So whenever we're looking at this tree, I can already tell that it is a conifer or an evergreen, which means it's a pine tree. When we look at pine trees, make sure that you handle them gently because the needles can be sharp. So if we grab a hold gently and pull this down, I'm looking at color, I'm looking at the needles, and I'm looking to see your different aspects of the tree. More specifically, for the needles, how many needles is it per spot? What color are the needles? Are they rounded? Are they sharp? What kind of needles are we looking at? Then we also look for the cones that form on the tree. This one's too early in the year right now for us to really focus on those, but you can see they're at the ends of all the ends of the bushes. All right. So we're able to see those. There it goes. For this one is a more of a older variety of this species. Newer varieties are a little bit brighter, and they also have this coloring throughout their whole branch. So with this one is known as a Colorado blue spruce. We can tell it's a blue spruce because of this blue hue that it has in comparison to something green. So if we put this green beside of it, I don't know if it's going to pick up on the camera, but we can see it has a little bit of a blue tint to it. In real life, in person, I can see that blue tint, but on camera, I don't think it's picking up. When you're older varieties, the only blue growth that you have is your new growth for the year. So we can see this green, it's a little deeper green than here. I think on camera it looks a little bit more silver. But we can see if I turn my flash on, maybe we can see a little bit. I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to pick up. But you can see it's a deeper green here. And then this has like a silver hue to it. But this is an older variety, I can tell just because the blue is only on the tips, and then the further back in you go, the more green it is. The newer varieties of Colorado blue spruce, people really like that blue color. And with that blue color, they selectively bred them to have that blue hue all the way back, so it has it more frequently. So with this is a Colorado blue spruce. You just go down through your own mental dichotomous key. If you do not have any sort of tree knowledge for ID, you can take your samples, take a picture of the tree, take a picture of the bark, take a picture of the needles, save it on your phone, and then when you get home, you can go online. You can also download an app to your phone. I use an app called PlantSnap, and that you can just take a picture of the tree, the needles or leaves, the bark even, the fruit, the flower, and it'll help you identify those. So for your projects, you're going to need to collect several different species of trees and do up a chart and a list of information for them. So for us to take a sample off of a pine tree, it's going to be a little different than a leaf tree. You're going to want to take a section with about like this off of here, and you're going to want to mount it flat on your paper. So you're going to want to take 2 of those, and if you look to see if there's any pine cones under here, this is by the courthouse, so it's been mowed. The likelihood of any pine cones, they're so small, is very slim to none right now. You can take some of the new growth off right here so you can get a sample of that, but if it's not your own tree, you need to pick a sample off of a section that's not going to be noticed. Right, so our next tree is going to be a deciduous tree, and we'll walk you through the ID for that. For our next tree, this is the one that's outside of the Chinese restaurant here in Philippi. And we're going to walk up here to it. This is not it. This is a bush. You make sure that you only collect samples from trees. Again, we're looking at the bark as well as the leaf. We're also looking for any fruit that we may see on here as well. All right? So my first instinct on this is that it is definitely an ornamental. It has fruit tree characteristics, but it's an ornamental variety. Okay, so we're looking through. You want to look through everything. You can look down below you as well to look for any fruit from previous years to help you ID the tree as well if it's not far enough along the year. This tree, however, does have the fruit on it for you to use for ID. So first instinct is we're going to grab a leaf. You want to feel the leaf. Is it smooth? Is it rough? Does it have any form of texture on it? What about the blade here? Does it have any teeth on it? You can barely see it, but there are teeth on that leaf. There are teeth on the leaf. Well, that's hard to say, but we're going to move in a little closer so that we have a little bit of shade so you can see it a little easier. So you can take, for a fruit tree, you can take a leaf off and you can squish it so that you can smell it and get a sort of profile of the tree similar to a pine tree. Now this one, it doesn't give me much of a fruit smell, which also hints to me that it is a ornamental fruit. We go on through. All right, so we're going to take samples off of here. When you take a sample, you're going to want to make sure that you get the fruit with it. This is a perfect example of that. So you just tear it off, and we have the fruit and the leaves as well. Right. So as we go through, as you get your dissection materials, you're going to want to make sure that your samples are good. When we go to press these in a book, you might need to remove a leaf that's damaged. For example, this one has some damage to it, but the majority of the leaves are pretty intact. And again, it's in a section of a tree. It's not going to impact the look of that tree because this is not mine. I can't make that call. This time of year, we are able to use the color that the leaves are changing to help us in the ID of the tree. And in this case, it is red, which helps me in identification. For this tree, this is a chokecherry, more specifically a red. It has the deep red on the leaves, and it also has our smaller cherries here. Now these we can't eat, wildlife can't eat, but we can't eat those. All right. So just make sure when you do your ID that you get as much information as possible about that tree before you get home, because you're not going to remember everything about it. You take pictures of the tree, take pictures of the bark, the leaves, the fruit, write down notes on your sheet of paper. You're also going to want to label your specimens as well as you collect them. All right, so if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me on Google Classroom, not necessarily email because it might get lost in the filter. of all the emails from Classroom. But if you have any questions, just reach out to me in all the ways that you have to reach out to me. This was a really short video in comparison to our virtual field trip where we went around and ID'd 8 to 9 different trees. Just make sure that if you have questions, you reach out, because I'm here to help you guys. Project's due for the leaf and leaf pressing is due on Tuesday. And then after Tuesday, you're going to develop your dichotomous keys, and it's due the following week. This next section here, really quick, I'm going to show you how to press those leaves in a book, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I have a book that I got from college. It's an older book that I'm not going to really be needing to read or anything like that. You can pick any type of book that you want to use. The bigger the book, the better. The heavier the book, the better. For this size book, I'm going to have to set other ones on top of it to really squish it. You're going to want to make sure that you skip pages in here, but we're going to put your leaf samples in the book. Make sure they're flat, and then you close it on top of it. You want to systematically work through the book.